I'm Alyssa Carter. 6 months ago, I left for the Yukon to chase glaciers, only to return home and find out the people I trusted most stole from my daughter. The car I saved for, the security she deserved, gone. And worse, it was my own parents who did it. Stick around because what they thought they'd get away with, I'm about to unravel. Before we dive into this emotional storm, tell me, where are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I'd love to know where this story is reaching hearts. I should have trusted my gut the moment Mom curled her lip. I'm leaving for a 6-month expedition, I said, trying to sound firm, professional, unbothered. My hands trembled around the mug. And I need you both to stay here with Lily. Dad was already frowning. His flannel sleeve twitched as he lowered his coffee. Slowly, deliberately, Mom didn't even blink. We're not your babysitters, Alyssa. There it was, ice cold, instant. The slap of it left a ringing silence. Dad slammed the mug onto the table, not loud enough to break, but enough to make me jump. So you're picking the ice over your kid again. I'm picking food, rent, college savings. My voice cracked. This grant is a chance to secure our future. No, you're running off to chase mountains again. I tried to hold his stare, but guilt rose like bile in my throat. Lily needs stability, routine. She loves this house. And what she needs is her mother, Mom snapped. Not some thrill-chasing scientist who checks in every blue moon. I stood in the middle of my own living room, somehow already a stranger in it. The room smelled like burnt toast and lemon cleaner, but the tension burned through that. My parents were acting like I dumped Lily on their doorstep with a note and a duffel bag. I made a schedule, I said, unfolding the neatly printed sheet from my tote. Meals, homework routines, therapy reminders. We raised 2 kids, Alyssa, Mom interrupted. We don't need a checklist. Then why are you making this so hard? I snapped, the heat finally pushing through my restraint. I'm not asking you to raise her, just hold the line for 6 months. Dad stood. You don't get it, do you? You keep choosing out there over in here, and you expect us to applaud you for it. I stared at them, my throat tightening with something between rage and heartbreak. No, I whispered. I expect you to care about Lily. Mom crossed her arms. Don't pretend this is about her. That was the moment something inside me shrank. This wasn't about schedules. It wasn't even about the expedition. It was about all the times I'd asked them for help, and they responded with resentment disguised as responsibility. I was the daughter who left. The daughter who didn't come home for Christmas 3 years ago because my flight was snowed in. The one who sent money but not casseroles. And now I was asking them to be parents again, when they never stopped punishing me for leaving in the first place. I'll figure it out, I said coldly. But thank you for making it so clear. I turned on my heel, heart pounding, vision blurring. Lily. She was the only thing that mattered now. I found Lily exactly where I knew she'd be, curled in the corner of her room, legs tucked under the pink knit blanket my grandmother had made when she was born. Her headphones were in, but she wasn't listening to anything. She just sat there, eyes fixed on the window like she was waiting for something to shift in the sky. Maybe she was. I gently knocked on the doorframe. She looked up, and the moment our eyes met, her mouth quivered. Are they mad? She asked quietly. I crossed the room in 2 steps and knelt beside her, brushing her dark hair away from her face. Not at you. Never at you. She nodded, but her lower lip caught between her teeth. Mom. She hesitated. Are you really leaving for 6 months? It was the kind of question that shouldn't sting when you've already made the decision, but it did. I took her hand in both of mine. Yes, Bug, but only for 6 months. I'll be back before you know it. Lily gave a tiny shrug, but the tears in her eyes betrayed her. I'm scared. I know, I whispered, pulling her into my arms. She felt so small, even though she was already a head taller than last year. I am too. She squeezed me tighter, her voice muffled against my shoulder. What if they don't want me here? The words landed like a punch. I pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. Why would you think that? They act weird when you're not around. Grandma told me not to be so needy last time you went away, and Grandpa yelled because I forgot to feed the cat. My stomach turned. Lily, I said gently, carefully, grown-ups act weird when they're stressed. But that has nothing to do with how lovable you are. You hear me? Her expression remained doubtful. What if they get mad at me for calling you too much? I bit my lip. I wanted to promise that it wouldn't happen. that they'd be understanding and patient and exactly the kind of guardians she needed. But I didn't have that confidence, so instead I lied. "They'll be fine," I said, keeping my voice soft. "And if they're not, you call me, every night. We'll talk about school and your art and how much I miss you, okay?" She nodded, though the crease in her brow didn't fade. We sat in silence for a long time, her head resting on my shoulder. The soft lavender scent from her diffuser mingled with the dusty smell of old books on her shelf. I wanted to freeze this moment, to wrap it in bubble wrap and protect it from what I couldn't control. I stood finally, smoothing her blanket over her knees. "I leave early, before sunrise." Her fingers clutched mine. "Can I wake up to say goodbye?" "Of course," I said, even though I knew I didn't want her to. If she saw my face in the morning, she'd see the fear I'd buried under my smile. She reached to her nightstand and picked up the little charm bracelet I gave her last year, the one with the mountain and compass charms. She slid it onto her wrist without a word. "You'll be okay," I whispered, kissing her forehead. She didn't answer, but she didn't let go of my hand either. Not until her eyes finally drifted shut. And even then, she kept holding on. I sat on the edge of my bed that night, listening to the muffled clinks of dishes downstairs, Mom cleaning up, or maybe just slamming things hard enough to send a message. I stared at the duffel bag packed by the door. Everything I needed to survive 6 months in the wilderness was in there, but nothing I needed to protect my daughter. That part, I had to trust someone else to do. And I already knew that trust was thin ice. Still, I didn't have a choice. The wind howled like a living thing outside the expedition tent. Even wrapped in thermal layers and a fleece-lined parka, the cold still found its way into my bones. But inside, in the fragile glow of the radio cabin's lantern, I had warmth, because on the other end of the headset was my daughter. "Frozen oatmeal again," Lily giggled, her voice crackling through the static. I smiled, cradling the mic. "Yep. Tried warming it near the propane heater, but now it tastes like regret and melted socks." She laughed louder this time, and for a moment I felt like I was home, 3 weeks into the expedition, and somehow I was surviving the distance. At least I told myself I was. "Mom," she said, "guess what?" "What?" "I got a B+ on my math test." "Lily, that's amazing," I practically cheered. "I told you those practice problems weren't a waste of time." "You were right," she said, and I could almost hear her beaming. That's how it went each night. I'd call in from the radio tent, sometimes standing in snow up to my thighs just to get a signal, and she'd update me on her day, which teachers were strict, what her best friend Maya wore to school, how awkward it was to eat dinner with Grandma and Grandpa when they didn't talk much. Sometimes she'd whisper the truth between the lines. "Grandpa got mad because I forgot to clean up the milk again," she'd say offhandedly. Or, "Grandma says you should have stayed home like a real mom." But then she'd quickly change the subject, back to a book she was reading or a video she wanted to show me when I got home. And I'd pretend not to hear the parts that broke me, because if I acknowledged the cracks, I wouldn't survive the guilt. Instead, I clung to every good detail, like the photo she sent on the 5th night. A grainy image of her holding up a handmade sign. "Miss you, Mom." Her cheeks were pink, her hair in messy pigtails, and behind her was the Civic, well, not the real one, but a magazine cutout she'd taped to the fridge. "Manifesting," she'd written beneath it. My heart squeezed. I told myself then, I will make that dream come true. The icy wind outside seemed less cruel with that picture pinned to the inside of my coat pocket. One evening, while cataloging ice core data beside the main lab station, I found myself staring out at the white expanse, thinking not about glaciers, but about birthdays. Hers was coming. Sweet 16. I pictured her smile when she saw the car in the driveway, imagined the surprise in her eyes. The joy. I'd worked every frost-bitten hour for that moment, and every night the radio call reminded me why. At the close of the 3rd week, Hank, our grizzled team leader with the personality of burnt coffee, threw a snowball at my tent. "Get your parka, Carter. Supply drop landed crooked. We need to haul the crates before the wind eats 'em." I zipped up, boots crunching hard into the snow as we walked to the edge of the ridge. "Your kid's still hanging in there?" he asked without looking at me. I nodded, surprised. Hank never asked about anything personal. "She's a rock star," I said quietly. He grunted. Good, keep those calls up. That stuff matters more than half the data we're freezing our butts for. I smiled at that. A rare compliment from Hank meant more than I let on. It was late evening in the metal comms cabin, walls groaning against the wind, frost creeping along the window seams when my pay finally came through. I stared at the blinking screen in disbelief. Confirmed, direct deposit received. My fingers hovered above the keys. For a moment I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then I smiled. Wide, uncontainable. Finally. I'd slept in tents lashed to cliff faces, eaten powdered eggs for breakfast, hiked 20 miles on a fractured ankle I didn't tell anyone about, and now, in this tiny blip of victory, it felt worth it. I opened the secure transfer app, checked my bank balance twice, then pulled up the message thread with Mom and Dad. The last one from me was a photo of Lily holding her manifesting car sign. The one before that, a reminder about her therapy appointment. I ignored the pinch in my chest and typed anyway. Just got paid. Transferring $5,500 to your account now. Please use it to buy Lily the blue Honda Civic. Her 16th birthday is in 3 weeks. This is my gift to her. Please don't tell her I sent it. Let her think it came from you too. She could really use a little joy. I reread the message 6 times before pressing send. Then came the hardest part. Waiting. I busied myself logging ice sample coordinates, double-checking our core drilling calendar, but I kept flicking back to the message thread, watching those 3 dots, waiting for a response. 37 minutes later it came. Okay, we'll handle it. Just like that. No sarcasm, no passive aggression, no commentary about how I was trying to buy Lily's love or that I should have used the money to fly home instead. Just okay. I blinked, rereading the message until I could recite it with my eyes closed. Maybe, just maybe, this was a turning point. Maybe they finally saw how much I was trying to do right by my daughter. I leaned back in the stiff metal chair and let out a long breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for 3 weeks. And then I cried. Not the loud, ugly kind. Just a few hot tears slipping down my cheeks, landing silently on my parka. Because for once, something went right. I climbed out of the comms cabin that night and stood beneath a sky full of stars so bright they looked fake. The wind had calmed. For now, the stillness felt like a rare grace. Hank found me out there standing alone. Get the good news, he asked gruffly, puffing into his gloves. I nodded, unable to stop smiling. My daughter's getting her car. He didn't say anything right away, then told you all this suffering might count for something. I laughed, a real one. Yeah, maybe you were right for once. He grinned at that, but his eyes stayed on the snow-packed horizon. You're lucky, he said finally. Some people send money home and never hear a word back. I know, I whispered. That's why this means everything. That night, I lay in my bunk inside the communal sleeping tent, surrounded by the rhythmic snoring of 4 other field scientists, and let my thoughts drift. I imagined Lily's face when she saw the car. I imagined her driving it to school with her music too loud and the windows down even in November. I imagined her feeling like someone saw her, believed in her, loved her. And I imagined Mom and Dad maybe softening, maybe choosing kindness. I let myself believe that people could change, even the ones who raised you. The announcement came just after breakfast, 3 of us still chewing half-frozen protein bars, trying to ignore the smell of someone's unwashed socks in the corner. Our expedition commander, Greta, stepped into the tent, her clipboard clenched tight. The wind outside groaned louder than usual, like it already knew what she was about to say. We're rerouting 6 of you to Yukon sector, be it's a remote ice shelf off-grid, no signal, 0 comms. My chest tightened instantly. No signal. I raised my hand, trying to sound calm. For how long? Could be a couple weeks, she said, avoiding eye contact. Could be longer. My fingers went numb even before the cold touched them. I hadn't missed a single night calling Lily since I arrived. Not one. I was about to ask if there were exceptions, but Greta beat me to it. I know some of you have family you've been checking in with, she said. But this site is critical, and we're stretched thin. Carter, you're on the list. The clipboard lowered just enough for our eyes to meet. I nodded slowly, heart pounding in my ears. Understood. But inside, I was screaming. I packed my gear in silence, my bunk already looking stripped and forgotten. Hank passed by, pausing at my duffel bag. Bad luck. I gave a tight smile. Figures. He hesitated, then added, "That Civic your girl's getting, she'll still have it when you get back." I tried to hold onto that thought as I hoisted my gear. The snow under my boots crunched louder than usual as we trudged toward the transport trucks. That sound, sharp, final, rang in my head like a countdown clock. Lily. What if something happened while I was gone? What if she needed me? What if she felt abandoned, again? I climbed into the back of the truck, wedging myself between crates of food rations and geology kits, and forced myself to breathe. This was temporary, just a shift in schedule, a delay in communication. It wasn't the end of the world. But as the truck rumbled forward and the base camp shrank behind us, a knot formed in my chest that wouldn't loosen. Hours later, the truck stopped near a patch of unmarked snow and sky. There were no tents, no visible paths, just white stretching in every direction. The outpost was a buried station, accessible by hatch. We'd be digging it out first. As I helped shovel ice off the access point, my mind looped through the goodbye I didn't get to give. No talk to you soon. No final "I love you." No clue to Lily that I'd vanish for days, maybe weeks, without a word. My last message to her was a picture of an icicle shaped like a dragon and a dumb caption, "Cold enough to hatch this guy." That was it. I hadn't told her I'd be gone. That night, huddled in the narrow metal outpost bunker, I stared at the ceiling for hours. The others snored or read or sorted gear. But I just lay there silent, willing time to pass quickly, willing Lily to be okay. Willing my parents, just once, to do the right thing without being asked. There's something cruel about cold that never ends. Not just the temperature, but the absence. The way the silence hovers. The way you can hear your own pulse louder than anything else. Snow squeaks under boots. The wind groans like it's tired of itself. But inside, in the remote cabin we called home, it was quieter than anywhere I'd ever been. Too quiet. I hadn't spoken to Lily in 8 days. 8. That number clanged in my brain all day as I ran ice samples through the centrifuge, as I boiled water from snow, as I chewed on freeze-dried soup that tasted like guilt. Hank was the only other person stationed here with me now. He didn't ask questions. He just grunted and handed me duct tape when I needed it. And maybe that was the only reason I didn't scream. But on the 9th morning, something cracked. We were logging field temperatures in the outer tent when I slammed the clipboard shut and said, "I'm going for a walk." "You've already done the perimeter," Hank muttered without looking up. "I need another," I said, my voice too tight, too thin. He didn't argue. I tugged on my gloves and trudged out into the snow. Wind hit my cheeks like needles. I didn't care. I walked until the station vanished behind me, until the only sound was my breath and the soft crunch of ice under boots. And then I stopped and screamed. Not words, not her name, just sound, raw and real and ragged. I sank to my knees. I missed my daughter like I missed air. My chest ached with the weight of the silence. What if something had happened? What if she thought I disappeared on purpose? What if Mom told her I just stopped caring? The last time we spoke, she'd been laughing, telling me about a weird boy in her algebra class who kept showing up late and blaming aliens. She'd said, "Grandma made soup from a can. I think it expired in 2019. I'd laughed too hard and promised I'd try sending snacks in the next drop shipment. But that was before the reroute, before I lost all signal, before I became a ghost. What kind of mother disappears for 9 days without warning? A selfish one, a reckless one, or just one who's trying and failing to provide something better? I couldn't tell anymore. That night I sat on my cot staring at the same blank spot on the wall I'd been staring at all week. The room was small, metal, dimly lit, the kind of place that makes your bones feel lonely. Hank was hunched over a deck of cards, shuffling with the rhythm of someone who's long since run out of things to say. Out of nowhere, I blurted, "How do you stand being away this long?" He didn't pause, just kept shuffling. "You don't." I looked at him. "You just tell yourself it matters," he added. I sat back. "And does it?" He shrugged. "Depends on the day." The cards clicked against the table again. "When my kid was 10, he said slowly, I missed her first piano recital. Storm grounded our plane for 5 days, no radio, no signal. When I finally called, she said, 'It's okay, Daddy, I knew you wanted to be there.'" He looked up. "She was lying," she cried on the phone, quietly. Thought I didn't hear. My chest tightened. "She's 30 now," he said. "We still talk. She forgave me, but I never forgave myself." I couldn't respond. The truth in his voice hit too close. "You're not a bad mom, Carter," he said, finally. "You're just a human one, and sometimes that has to be enough." Later, I tried to write Lily a letter. "Dear Bug, I'm sorry I haven't called. I didn't disappear. I didn't forget. The snow swallowed the signal and I screamed anyway. I scratched it out. I started again. If you're wondering why I stopped calling, I didn't want to. I miss you more than I thought a person could miss another. I imagine your face every night and pray, yes, pray, that someone in that house is being kind." I scratched that out too. None of it was enough. That night I slept in fits, dreaming of missed calls and the sound of Lily whispering, "Where are you, Mom?" into a dark hallway. And I had no answer. The morning of Lily's birthday began with a bitter wind and a silence I couldn't stand. I woke before dawn, heart thudding with one singular, blinding need. Reach her. My daughter, my Lily, sweet 16. I hadn't missed a single birthday in her life, not when she had the flu at 8, not even the year we spent in a motel room because our lease fell through. And now, thousands of miles away, I had planned it all perfectly. The car, the gift, the surprise. Except none of it mattered if she didn't hear from me. I shoved on my boots and coat and slipped outside before Hank could ask questions. The wind nearly knocked me back, slicing at my face like it held a personal grudge. But I didn't stop. I climbed the ridge just past the supply crates, radio clutched in my hand, antenna angled skyward like a desperate prayer. Come on, just give me a blip," I whispered, holding it above my head. Static. I adjusted the dial, again, and again. "Nothing. I know you're trying to be strong today, Lily," I said into the receiver, "but I want you to know I didn't forget. I didn't disappear. I'm right here." The wind snatched the words before I could even hear myself. I looked up at the sky, blank, gray, unforgiving. The radio hissed in my ear, taunting me with its emptiness. I closed my eyes and imagined her sitting at the kitchen table, maybe still in pajamas, expecting that call, checking the phone, refreshing it, waiting. I imagined her face slowly falling when the screen stayed dark, and I broke. I dropped to my knees, the snow crunching beneath me like glass. "I'm sorry," I choked, hugging the radio to my chest. "I'm so sorry, Bug." The cold didn't care. Neither did the sky. Later that morning, I trudged back into the outpost, my fingers numb and swollen, boots trailing snow behind me like ghosts. Hank looked up from the tiny stove and raised an eyebrow. "She call?" he asked, knowing full well she couldn't. "No signal," I said. "Try again tomorrow," he offered gruffly. "It's her birthday, Hank." My voice cracked hard on the word. He sighed. "Still counts even if she doesn't hear it right away." I didn't answer, because I knew what didn't count: the absence, the silence, the empty ring of a promise unkept. The rest of the day passed in a fog. I tried to work, failed. I wrote her name in my field notebook over and over, Lily, 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 until the letters blurred into tears. I paced, ranted silently, whispered apologies to walls too insulated to answer. I imagined her opening the front door to the sound of her grandparents saying, "Look what your mom got you," like it was their gesture, their gift, their effort, but I couldn't text her, couldn't hear her squeal, couldn't ask if she liked the color or if it smelled like a new car or if she had tears in her eyes like I did when I pictured it. She would have called me, right? If she could. Or was she waiting? Had she already assumed I wasn't coming through? The sick thoughts spiraled. What if they never gave her the car at all? What if they told her I changed my mind? No, I couldn't let my mind go there. I clung to hope. That night I made her favorite dinner in my mind. Spaghetti with extra parmesan, garlic bread, lemon cake. I set it on an imaginary table and sat beside the version of her that still felt reachable. 16, I whispered. "You're officially too cool for me now." She laughed in my head, rolled her eyes like she always did when I said stuff like that. "You know what I'd give just to hear your laugh, Bug." I lay back in the bunk fully dressed, boots still on, radio at my side like a heartbeat. But there was only static. It was the day after Lily's birthday when desperation finally overpowered reason. I'd barely slept. The wind had calmed, but my mind hadn't. The silence was unbearable. No message, no update, just a blank void where my daughter should have been. I needed to know she was okay. I needed to hear her voice, even just one word, and that's when I saw the spruce. Tall, narrow, bent slightly to the west from years of harsh wind. Just beyond the perimeter ridge, its top towered above the radio shadow we'd been trapped in for weeks. If I could get high enough, just a little elevation, maybe I could catch a signal. I grabbed the radio, shoved it into my coat, and bolted out the door. "Carter," Hank called after me. "Where are you going?" "I'll be back," I shouted over my shoulder. "I just need 5 minutes." I didn't wait for him to follow. My boots punched into snowdrifts as I scrambled toward the tree line. The spruce stood like a lighthouse in the distance, tall, impossible, my last hope. By the time I reached it, my breath was ragged and sharp in the cold air. I pulled off my gloves, pocketed them, and stared up at the jagged branches. This was stupid. Insane. But Lily was worth insane. I reached for the first branch and pulled myself up. The bark bit into my palms. Sap smeared against my coat. The radio jostled in my pocket as I climbed higher, testing each limb before shifting my weight. I wasn't thinking about safety. I wasn't thinking about the broken bones I'd studied in wilderness training modules. I was thinking about my daughter. I was thinking, just let her know I didn't forget her. About 20 feet up, the wind picked up again, rattling the branches with a sound like bones clinking. I gripped tighter, wedging my boot into a notch and drawing out the radio with one shaking hand. I turned the dial, held my breath, crackling a flicker of something. I raised it higher. "Come on," I whispered. "Come on, please," and then a blip, not a full connection, but something. Tears blurred my vision. I pressed the button on the side. "Lily, it's Mom. Can you hear me? I'm trying. I'm so sorry I missed your day. Happy birthday, baby. I love you." The wind shrieked. And then it happened. The branch under my foot snapped. I had a half-second to react, just long enough to drop the radio and reach for a higher limb. Missed. My body fell sideways. My leg caught on something, then twisted, and I was falling, branches tearing across my coat, slamming into my ribs, the world tilting too fast to understand. And then, crack. I hit the ground in a tangled, breathless heap. Pain, white-hot, everywhere. The scream tore out of me before I even realized it was mine. I looked down, and my leg bent in a direction no human body should allow. "Oh my God," I gasped. Oh, God." The pain hit in waves. I tried to crawl, but my vision blurred. The world spun. I could hear Hank shouting in the distance. "Alyssa, ALYSSA." Branches snapped, boots pounded. Then he was beside me, eyes wild, breath heaving. "Don't move," he barked. "I got you, stay still." "I was so close," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. She almost heard me. Hank looked down at my leg and paled. "You've got a compound fracture. We need a medic, now." I blinked up at the sky, the cold seeping into my back, into my soul. I didn't reach her. I broke my body trying. And now the expedition was over. The world outside the transport truck blurred into shades of white and regret. My leg was splinted and immobilized. Hank sat beside me, arms crossed, jaw tight. A medic rode in the back, checking vitals every hour, mostly just to make sure I was still conscious. But I was wide awake. I hadn't closed my eyes in over a day. Too much noise in my head. Too many images of what could be waiting when I got home. "She probably thinks I forgot," I muttered under my breath, staring out the frost-bitten window. Hank didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The silence said enough. Lily's face played on a loop in my mind. Her expression when I didn't call, didn't show, didn't say happy birthday the way I always had. I imagined her blowing out candles in a quiet kitchen, or maybe not at all. Maybe she refused to celebrate. Maybe she hated me. Maybe she believed I abandoned her. The thought made my stomach twist harder than the pain in my leg. It would take 2 weeks to get me stateside. 2 full weeks of transport, flight clearances, weather delays, paperwork. 2 weeks of still not being able to reach her. The satellite unit on board the truck was fried from the cold snap. I'd tried 6 times in one day. No signal. The medic told me to stop pushing it before I caused a stress spike. I didn't tell her that stress was already the only thing keeping me awake. Every hour that passed, the what-ifs multiplied. What if the car never arrived? What if they used the money for something else? What if Lily felt so unwanted, so unheard that she stopped waiting for me? I trusted them. Why did I do that? The medic tried to distract me. She asked what I did for work, what kind of terrain we were studying, whether I'd broken bones before. I gave one-word answers. The only thing I wanted to say was, I need to get home to my daughter. That was the only sentence that mattered. At night, the truck stopped to conserve fuel and avoid storm-blind driving. I'd lie in the back, painkillers dulling the throb in my leg but not the panic in my chest. I held the last photo Lily sent me, her holding up the Miss You, Mom sign, standing in front of that paper cutout of the blue Civic, smiling like she believed the world still kept its promises. She had no idea I was already fighting to keep mine. I traced her handwriting with my finger and whispered the same thing every night. I'm coming, I swear. One morning, the medic handed me her thermos and said, "You'll be home soon." "Not soon enough," I muttered. She softened. "Kids are more resilient than we give them credit for." "Not when they've already been let down once," I said. She paused. "You're talking about her grandparents." I nodded. "They raised me on control, manipulation disguised as care. I should have known better." She offered a sad smile. "You were hoping they'd do better by your daughter than they did by you." I didn't answer. The truth stung too much. Somewhere near the Canadian border, I saw pine trees again. Real ones, not ghostly silhouettes behind ice fog. It was the first thing that felt familiar in weeks. The first glimpse of home. But home didn't feel like safety anymore. It felt like uncertainty. Would Lily be waiting? Would she even want to see me? Or would I come home to silence colder than anything Alaska ever delivered? Denver didn't feel like home when I landed. The city looked the same skyline, same roads, same clouds hovering like always, but nothing felt familiar. I hadn't walked these streets in nearly 6 months. And now I was back on crutches with a splint, a scar down my shin, and 1,000 questions tightening in my chest. But none louder than one. Did she get the car? My sister Danielle picked me up from the airport. She offered a tight smile, the kind that felt practiced. "Lily's at Mom and Dad's. She's been staying there mostly," she said as we drove, "mostly." "Has she been okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Danielle glanced over. "Quiet, distant, but you know Lily, she keeps it in." I didn't answer because I didn't know Lily anymore, not after all this time away, not after weeks of silence. We pulled up to my parents' house just before dinner. The same beige siding, same cracked walkway, same porch chair Mom never let anyone sit on. Danielle helped me out of the car and up the steps. I knocked, heart hammering. Lily opened the door. She looked older. Not physically, still the same round cheeks and hazel eyes, but her posture had changed. There was something heavy in her shoulders, like she'd been carrying things she wasn't meant to. "Mom," she said, barely above a whisper. I pulled her into a hug, nearly toppling on the crutches. "I missed you so much," I said into her hair. She didn't hug back right away. Then slowly, her arms circled me, hesitant, like she wasn't sure I was real. "I waited on my birthday," she whispered. My heart shattered into pieces I couldn't sweep up. "I tried, I did. I climbed a tree like a lunatic. I broke my leg trying to reach you." She pulled back, blinking at me, and for the first time I saw it, she didn't know. "Did you get the car?" I asked, trying to smile. That's when everything stopped. Lily blinked again. "What car?" Behind her, Mom stepped into the doorway, holding a casserole dish. Dad followed, jaw tight. Danielle froze mid-sip of water, her hand trembling. "What car?" Lily repeated, her voice smaller this time. I looked at my parents. "The Civic, the one I wired money for. You said you'd handle it." My mother's mouth opened, then closed. My father suddenly found the floor very interesting. "I sent you over $5,000, I said, louder now. "I told you it was for her birthday, her car. Her moment, and you said okay, you said you'd handle it." Lily stepped back, her face going pale. "Wait," she whispered. "You sent money?" "Yes," I said, heart pounding. "Weeks before her birthday, with specific instructions." My mother's hand trembled, casserole dish wobbling. "We thought you wouldn't follow through," she said finally. "You were unreachable. What were we supposed to do?" "Buy her the car," I said, my voice rising with every word. Danielle stood, eyes wide. Wait, is this about my Civic?" My stomach dropped. "You're what?" I turned to her. "I got a Civic a few weeks ago, blue. Mom said it was a gift she and Dad wanted to surprise me since I finally paid off my student loans." The room spun. "You gave Lily's car to Danielle?" I whispered. Silence, complete soul-splitting silence. Lily's hands slowly curled into fists. "You lied to me," she said, voice shaking. "You told me we couldn't afford anything. You said money was tight. That I shouldn't expect much." Dad cleared his throat. It was a misunderstanding. No, I snapped. It was theft. You stole from me from her. Lily stepped back farther, her face crumpling in slow motion. You let me go to school in torn shoes, she said to my mom, tears beginning to fall. You let me think I didn't matter, that I wasn't worth a birthday gift. And all this time you used the money for her. Danielle looked mortified. I didn't know, oh my God, I had no idea, my voice cracked. I trusted you. I turned to Lily. Let's go. Where? She asked, tears spilling now. Anywhere that isn't here. I grabbed her hand, turned, and didn't look back as my parents called after us. Not until we were in the taxi, not until I saw Lily beside me, crying silently into her hoodie. Not until I realized the full damage of what they'd done. We didn't speak for most of the ride. The taxi's heater rattled as it blew warm air into our silence, but it couldn't thaw the tension sitting between us. Lily leaned against the window, her hood pulled up like a shield. Her knees were drawn tight to her chest. My hand hovered between us, aching to reach for hers, but I didn't, not yet. I didn't deserve to touch her pain, not until I understood it. I studied her reflection in the glass, how still she was, how silent. Bug, I finally said. My voice was a whisper, fragile and frayed. Talk to me. Her head turned slightly, eyes rimmed red. Did you really climb a tree? She asked softly. A breath I didn't realize I was holding slipped out. Yeah, I said. I was desperate. I thought if I got high enough I could reach you, just to say happy birthday, I love you, I didn't forget. She swallowed, then nodded once. They told me you just stopped calling, that you probably got too busy or something went wrong and you gave up. I never gave up on you. I know that now. Lip trembled. But it didn't feel that way back then. At the apartment, Lily curled onto the couch, knees tucked under her, and started talking. She talked about the first week I was gone, how she waited by the phone every night, setting alarms to make sure she didn't miss a single call. She talked about the excuses my parents made, how they said I might be delayed, might be too busy, might have moved on from mothering for a while. I sat in silence, trying not to cry, letting her say everything. She talked about school, how her shoes wore through during winter, how she asked once if she could get a new coat and Grandma snapped, "We're not made of money." How she used her own savings, every penny she had tucked away from babysitting and holiday money to buy supplies, deodorant, socks, tampons, things she never should have been paying for herself. I didn't want to tell you, she whispered, because I figured you were already doing everything you could, and I didn't want to be another burden. My heart splintered again. You have never been a burden, I said, tears streaming freely now. You are my everything, Lily. I left to provide for us. I trusted them to protect you. Instead, they took what was meant for you and gave it away. They made me feel like an afterthought, she said. Like Danielle mattered more because she's an adult. She has real problems, college debt, a career, but I was just a kid who needed too much. I reached for her hand. She let me. I am so sorry, I said, voice shaking. I'm going to fix this, I promise you. She looked at me with cautious eyes. How? I stood. I have receipts, bank transfers, every message. They said they'd handle it. I kept it all, every screenshot, every confirmation. Her brows furrowed. You're going to confront them? No. I walked to the desk drawer and pulled out a thick manila folder. I'm going to prove what they did, and I'm going to give them a choice. She tilted her head. They either make it right, or I take this public. Legally, financially, and socially. A fire sparked in her gaze. You'd really do that? I broke my leg falling out of a tree trying to reach you, I said flatly. They broke your trust and humiliated you, so yes, I'll go further if I have to. 2 days later, I stood on their doorstep again, this time with a cane in one hand and the folder in the other. My parents answered together like they'd rehearsed it. They didn't invite me in. Let's make this quick, Dad muttered. Sure, I said, handing them the folder. Every transfer, every email, every lie you told Lily while spending the money I sent on Danielle. My mother opened the folder and skimmed it. She paled. I want the car, I said. The actual Civic transferred into Lily's name, title, insurance. I want a written apology for her, and you will not speak to her again unless she invites it. You lost that right. Dad stiffened. You can't dictate. I can, or I file charges. Financial misconduct. I'll take it to small claims, the press, social media, whatever it takes, but I won't let you humiliate her a second longer. Silence. Mom covered her mouth. We thought you wouldn't make it back, that the expedition might keep you off the grid. So you stole from my daughter. My voice cut like ice. No, she cried. We gave it to Danielle because she needed a break. She was struggling. She's not a child. She's not your grandchild. And you knew that money was for Lily. Tears welled in her eyes. You're right. We were wrong. We'll fix it. Dad exhaled, defeated. We'll transfer it this week. We'll apologize. You'll do it now or we're done. They both nodded. I turned without another word. And this time I didn't limp. I walked away with my head high, knowing the storm had passed, and justice was catching up. 1 week later, I watched from the window as the tow truck pulled up with a familiar blue Honda Civic trailing behind it. Same color I asked for. Same model. Same dream, only delayed, bruised, and heavier with meaning than I ever imagined. Lily stood beside me, arms crossed tightly across her chest. She hadn't said much all morning, just hovered in quiet disbelief like if she breathed too loudly, the moment might vanish. They actually did it, she murmured. They had no choice, I said gently. You deserve this, Lily, every part of it. The truck driver unhooked the car, handed me the title and keys, legally signed over by my parents, just like I demanded. He gave Lily a small grin. Nice ride, he said. She nodded slowly, still stunned. We went outside together. The air was crisp and fall had begun to kiss the leaves golden. Lily walked around the car in slow, cautious circles like she was afraid to touch it. I don't know if I'm ready, she said quietly. Ready for what? I asked. To believe that something good is finally mine. That broke me a little. I took her hand. This isn't just about the car. This is about you, your dignity, your value. No one gets to steal that from you again. She looked at me, tears pricking her eyes, and nodded. Then she got in. She adjusted the seat, ran her fingers across the wheel, smiled, not wide, not all at once, but real. After a moment, she turned off the engine and got out. She didn't say anything, just went to the kitchen, grabbed a bucket of warm water and soap, and walked back out. She began to wash it, slowly, carefully, with intention, like she was scrubbing away everything they tried to make her believe about herself. Later that week, Lily started therapy. Her idea, not mine. She came home with worksheets, journals, words like self-worth and boundaries circled in purple ink. She didn't talk about everything yet, but I saw it in how she moved, more upright, more steady. She said no to things without guilt. She laughed more often. She didn't ask for permission to feel proud. One night while we were folding laundry, she asked, "Do you think they'll change?" I folded a sweatshirt. "I don't know, maybe, but we're not waiting around to find out." She nodded. "Good, because I'm done shrinking." A few days later, I called my parents to lay down the final boundary. "We're not cutting you off," I said, "but this is conditional. You earn your way back, slowly, carefully. With proof, you don't get to rewrite what happened. You don't get to play victims." They both agreed tearfully, but I didn't let that sway me. Lily wasn't a charity case to be pitied. She was a young woman who'd been robbed of her trust, and now she was taking every ounce of it back. One clean car, one quiet boundary, one small victory at a time. The morning sun hadn't even crested the rooftops when Lily came out of her room in her new favorite jacket, the soft green one she found on sale and refused to take off all week. Her hair was pulled back into a low ponytail, and a fresh coat of clear lip gloss shimmered on her mouth. She looked like herself again, but brighter. She held the keys to the Civic like they were a trophy. Earned, owned. "You sure you're okay driving in traffic?" I asked, not out of doubt, just habit. She gave me a look over her shoulder, the kind teens give their parents when they're 2 seconds from rolling their eyes but still too respectful to actually do it. "I've practiced, remember. Just checking." We got into the car. She took the driver's seat. I slid into the passenger side, heart swelling. She adjusted her mirrors like she'd done it 1,000 times. The engine purred beneath her hands. "I still can't believe this is mine," she whispered. "It is," I said. "Fully, legally, emotionally, yours." She smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. As we pulled up to the school parking lot, a wave of nerves rippled across her face. It was still early, but already groups of students were clustered near the main entrance, clutching iced coffees and backpacks, laughing and scrolling on their phones. A few looked up as the Civic rolled in. I saw heads turn. Some of those same kids had mocked her just months ago for her worn-out clothes, her outdated shoes, her quiet way of shrinking behind lockers to avoid being noticed. Now she pulled into the center spot like she owned the concrete. As she turned off the engine, I reached for her hand. "You've got this." She took a breath. "Yeah, I think I do." Lily stepped out of the car. Sunlight caught her shoulders. She tossed the keys into her palms, smooth and unbothered. One girl did a double take. A boy whispered something and pointed. Another girl with chunky earrings leaned toward her friend and mouthed, "That's hers." Lily didn't flinch. She straightened her jacket, slung her backpack over one shoulder, and turned back to me. Her smile was soft but strong. "Thanks, Mom, for everything." She didn't say it like a goodbye. She said it like a closing chapter. And then she walked away, confident, unapologetic, whole. I stayed parked there for a few minutes, watching her go. Watching the way people looked at her differently now, not just because of the car, but because of the way she carried herself. Not broken, not invisible, seen, respected. And I knew then, deep in my bones, that justice hadn't just been about returning a stolen car. It had been about returning something far more precious. Her dignity, her sense of self, her right to take up space. And I'd do it all over again. Break bones, confront parents, face silence and storms, just to see her walk like that. Because that's what we do. We fight for our daughters until they can fight for themselves.